Warning: the following program may contain material not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
They say for every light in this world, there is a shadow waiting to reclaim it. We've been told what to believe, what to fear, and exactly where the boundaries of real end. But tonight, we're crossing those lines. From the whispers in the attic to the lights in the desert sky, and the entities that walk among us, we are stepping behind the veil. Transmitting from deep within the mountains of West Virginia, it's time to seek the truth. This is Let's Find Out with Diego. And now, here is your host, Diego the Podcaster.
On this episode of Let's Find Out, our guest is the founder of the East Coast Bigfoot Researchers Organization. For years, he's been venturing into the shadowy forests, researching and investigating the whispered legends of Bigfoot and traveling to reported sites. His latest books, Trail of the Unknown and the Bigfoot Zone, are out now and ready to educate you. All this plus more. Please welcome our good friend and first-time guest, independent wildlife and cryptid field researcher, Daniel Benoit. Daniel, my friend, welcome to Let's Find Out.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, man. This has been great. I know you've been trying to get me on here, schedule conflicts and, and events get in the way, but hey, I finally made it. Glad to be here.
Yeah, actually, I've been trying to get you on for 3 years. And it's interesting because I know you're a very busy person. The first time I met you was for 6 minutes because you were busy running events in Wayer's Cave. And we had a lot of small talk, but man, those events really take it out of you because you have to be not only in charge of the people getting the schedule for the speakers, you also have your vendors, you also have your food truck. So I was watching you that day. It's like, I don't think he's got time for long conversations.
Well, I wish you kind of came and got me and rescued me from dealing with everybody. I would have loved to go on and hide and chat with you. I do try to do that when it gets crazy after dealing with checking on the vendors and whoever else has I get questions after questions, and my daughter's been there to help me out, and she'll call me on the radio because we have two-way radio. It's like, Dad, somebody here's got a question or somebody wants to talk to you. I was like, okay, I'll be there when I can.
No, they were great events, and
Yeah.
and I always ask the folks that I've met there because I've gotten a lot of. Actually, I've gone into network and also learned from the different speakers or presenters. I was able to get a lot of guests on my show from your event, so I have to thank you because, in a way, you definitely made that possible.
Oh yeah. You know what's awesome about that too is even at my own events or when I go to other events as just somebody who is attending, or if I'm speaking at another event, I get to interact with all these different people. And yeah, I mean, just like you, it's fascinating because people want to share stories with you. They got experiences and they just want to share it with somebody. They want somebody they could openly discuss it with. And I mean, like in my last event, I had somebody towards the, I guess you could say towards the end of it, whatnot. They had pulled me off, at the community center where the event was. They pulled me off into the side room and started telling me a story. And and it's interesting because, well, that particular story is a story in itself because I'm very objective on certain cryptids, but his story kind of drew me. I got drawn into his story. Like he really saw what he said he saw. So I love hearing stuff like that. It's like you visualize what people tell you. And you kind of just make note of it. You don't dismiss it. I've heard a lot of stories either from me interviewing people on podcasts or me talking to people in person. Because it's good to hear these stuff because you can collaborate. Because based off of any experiences I may have had, it's like, well, hey, so and so experienced that too. That's awesome. I'm not the only one. So it's good to hear other people's inputs and their what they experienced or witnessed. So it goes a long ways. You keep track of that. And then down the road you hear other stories. And to me, it builds a form of credibility that like this is really happening. this, people are really seeing this, or dealing with this, so yeah, it's an adventure in itself hearing these stories. It really is.
It is not only from people who are presenters in those events when you have them, and also the vendors and the authors, but I have a similar experience. But every once in a while, I do events and I'm a vendor. You'll get a random person just start talking to you, telling you their experiences, and you got that connection. And sometimes I wind up even learning more about this certain paranormal experience or cryptid from that person because they've had the experience, and I'm learning from them.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Some of the stories I hear, it might be new to me, but for example, I'll tell you something. There's one thing I've heard a lot from numerous people, and it may not sound much of a big deal, but it's something that I always kind of scratch my head on. It's something that I don't see that ever happening. I don't see me ever witnessing that. And to be more specific, you hear about, you talk about the paranormal, and I guess this kind of falls into that range. Seeing strange lights in the woods. It's you hear about people seeing orbs. Um, well, that all changed for me about 3 years ago. It started up in the state of Pennsylvania. If I'm not in Virginia, I'm up in Pennsylvania or wherever else, West Virginia. But 3 years ago, I started seeing strange lights in Pennsylvania. Couldn't believe what I was seeing. It just didn't add up to me. But I was there and I was physically seeing what I saw, So, and then a year after that, me and one of my fellow members here in Virginia during one of our group campouts on a night hike, on the way back to the camp, we seen a round big ball of light. Well, my buddy David saw it first and caught my attention. And, it was very strange. I said, this is a little bit different than the lights I saw in Pennsylvania, but I'm seeing this here in Virginia. And it's a round ball of light. Nothing around is illuminating it. And it's not projecting a beam like if it was a flashlight or a spotlight. And then it just went out. And immediately entertained the thought, maybe there was somebody over there in no thick brush. We pull out a thermal, start investigating. We start trying to look around and see if there's somebody over here. There was nobody over there. No heat signatures got picked up. It was just the strangest thing ever. So, we started doing some research. I personally started digging into strange phenomena, strange folklore, strange lights, or whatever in the state of Virginia alone. And more specifically in the main area we've been focusing on in Falks Run, Virginia, and which is just a few miles from West Virginia. And of course, where we camp is all part of the George Washington National Forest that covers a large portion of the western part of the state along the Alleghenies and Appalachia range. Well, I later learned that we're not the only ones that have experienced this. There's a lot of strange phenomena with strange lights in the woods, especially in the area that we focus on right now. So, so yeah, I guess you could talk. That's a small touch of paranormal. That's only field I know how to put it in. I don't know. I like to put things that are unexplainable in the paranormal realm because that's where paranormal comes to play. A lot of people don't realize paranormal covers a lot of strange, unexplainable occurrences when simply they're thinking, oh, paranormal, that's ghosts and spirits. Not always the case. Bigfoot's in there. A lot of us like to put Bigfoot in the paranormal realm because there's a lot of things that we witness or see that we can't explain. And so it's been fascinating. It's been very exciting to witness what we have been witnessing, to see the things that we do, and then learn the history of the areas behind that. Because when we go out exploring and researching, yeah, we go out there exploring, we end up finding things, but at the end, we end up coming up with more questions. It raises more questions on top of questions. What is this? Why is this happening? Why are we witnessing this? Where is this coming from? There's all these different questions. And not to mention the stuff that happens to us at our camp with equipment turning on and going off, well, all kinds of weird stuff. I mean, uh, the location where we camp at and that we explore, yeah, there's remnants of old homestead foundations in the area. So there's a lot of things we look at and try to consider, like, okay, what happened here? What's the history here? You look it up online, you won't find nothing about this area online. You got to go into the local libraries or wherever they keep the records from of this town, So, yeah, there's a lot of strangeness there, and I mean, we're still focusing there. I mean, this is not my main research area, but I've been here. We've been covering this area for the last going on almost 4 years now, 3 to 4 years, and it's been very rewarding because there's a lot of other things that happen, not just with us, some of our team members. So I don't know. It's been very rewarding. I will say that it has not been dull. But at the same time, I want people to know when we go out there, we're not gung ho. We're not out there, doing military tactical techniques, and we go out there with a very non-aggressive approach. We go out there in a relaxed state. We're going out there to enjoy ourselves. We're there to camp. We're there to enjoy nature, and yes, we get to observe some of the wildlife and find evidence of the wildlife. And by doing so, going out in a relaxed state, hey, that's when the unknown reveals itself or presents itself to us. Because a lot of what we deal with, we don't go looking for it; it comes looking for us. And that's kind of like what happened, this past weekend. It's up in Pennsylvania with me and Chadwick, but that's another story in itself. But so yeah, I'm sorry for rambling on. I know I can go on and go off the record there for a little bit. But
Not at all. That's what we're here for, brother. But
yeah,
we're going to definitely get into some of the things you've found, things you've encountered, and your experiences. But let me go back a little bit because I know you spent an awful lot of time in the woods all these years, not only researching for and investigating Bigfoot, but camping out, nature trails, and all of that kind of things like that. As a person that spends tons of times in the woods, like I said, outside of the potential Bigfoot, what have you seen out there that a normal person wouldn't see, I guess, in a town or in a city? Because there's got to be a lot of things out there that the normal person does not see. And some other, I would say, dangerous or not so dangerous things because you might come in contact with a bobcat or a wolf or a coyote or something. So what's out there?
well, I personally, if we want to talk about wildlife for a little bit, I mean, I've seen numerous bears. I've had a lot of encounters with black bears, uh, some close, some distant. And let me make mention, for those who don't get out there, or you hear about, oh, there's bears in the area. Oh no, I don't want to go there. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you, relax. Bears don't want to be bothered. They're very skittish on the most part. They're not aggressive unless you approach one that might have a cub. That might be a different story. So, if you've seen the movie Cocaine Bear, Cocaine Bear, yeah, that's a different story right there too. Actually, no, I'm not even thinking about that. I haven't even seen that one. The one I'm talking about is there's another one called Backcountry, where the campers, young couple, get attacked by this black bear that's pretty much rogue and has gone crazy, and he's out to kill. Well, that's just a movie for entertainment in Hollywood. Black bears are not like that. Not saying they can't be like that. I'm just saying 98% of the time they're not aggressive. Um, so black bears are something I frequently encounter. I have seen coyotes out there, and I do believe what I witnessed one day running across the road chasing a deer. I do believe that was a wolf, a red wolf to be exact. Um, Bobcats, I've captured them on camera a few times. Um, I will tell you this. I know for a fact that we have mountain lions here. I don't care who you are. If you want to dismiss that, deny that, that's because you're following the routine of society and what society's programming for you to understand. All the game wardens, all your authorities will tell you they don't exist here. They have a script. They have to go by it. I will tell you, because they'll tell an eyewitness that they were seeing things, So, I can get into that. That's another thing. I actually, for the record, I have spoken to retired people from the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries. I know one individual who's reached out to me regarding Bigfoot information, and also the mountain lion. The mountain lion does exist, and I'm not going to mention his name for the sake of who he is and what he did. But mountain lions do exist here. They are here in the state of Virginia and along the East Coast. But that's all I'm going to say. And eyewitnesses, you keep calling them liars all you want. You'll learn for yourself one day if you're out there enough and spend enough dedicated time. So that's one thing I want people to know for a fact. I've been laughed at, by people I've met along the way. Yeah, mountain lions, they laugh because they think they don't exist here because the authorities say they don't exist here. That's the problem with what a lot of what we believe in or the way we think, because we're trained in the way we're programmed through society, growing up since our youth. The government, everybody has a way of programming people. It's like they want you to think one way, and ignore this side. Ignore the man behind the curtain, kind of, so to speak. The truth, even though the truth is behind that curtain, we're looking at what's supposed to be the great and powerful Wizard of Oz. The authority is what we're told to believe in, but when the truth is behind that curtain, that's basically what we're dealing with in life. Like, if that makes any sense, but
it does make sense. Yeah. Let me say this, because what would it hurt? Whatever agency, you can say government, you can say the local authorities, anybody.
Oh yeah.
What's the harm of letting the population know? You know what? Don't venture out into this part of the woods because there are mountain lions there, and they might kill you. Mm-hmm. I don't see any harm in people knowing those facts.
Well, I tell you, if this is my honest belief, my honest opinion. Well, we can go back. Let's go back several years ago, and this is before my time. I'm sure you've heard of the spotted owl that was discovered out in, I believe it was Washington State. It was spotted on several occasions. It started off back in the 1960s and later on in the 80s. And it wasn't until the early 90s the way they finally officially marked it and put it on the endangered species list. But when that little tiny spotted owl, is a small little bird, got declared an endangered species, the whole logging industry shut down, which was a big part of the economy. Okay, put a lot of people out of work for a while. So there, or right there, that's just one small example. We have the economical side of things, but then, yeah, you tell people we got monsters in the woods. If the authority admits to that and says we have mountain lions, or even the Bigfoot, or this other cryptid for that matter, it's going to put the fear factor in people. So either way, you got to kill the economy. People are not going to want to spend money to go out and spend time in all these state forests and national parks. So you got the economy side of things, and you got the fear factor. It's going to put a damper on everything. So people are going to stop spending money to buy the equipment and the gear necessary to go out to enjoy themselves, to stay out there. No, I mean, why would they go out there? You got these families that are, I'm sorry to say it, but there's a lot of soft people in the world. They're not going to want to go out there. You got all these sissies and, oh no, I'm not going to bring my kids out there, let them get attacked. These animals are there. That's their world. I mean, you're entering in it regardless if you want to believe it or not, but these animals ain't there to attack you. They're not bothering nobody. I'm out in those woods all the time by myself. Yes, I go out there in groups, but for years I've been spending time by myself. I've been out in the woods by myself when I encountered half of these bears over the years. They don't bother you. They don't want nothing to be a part of you. I mean, I woke up the bears on you right outside of my tent. I mean, I think I scared them more than it did scare me. So I mean, it's whatever. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. But yeah, I mean, again, if the authorities were to admit, then a lot of society would start believing in this. But again, when the authorities deny and whatnot, I have my grandson banging at the door. But yeah, I mean, as long as the authorities don't admit to this, basically the society, the community will be fine and dandy. But yeah.
And I could definitely, from your perspective, I could definitely see where a lot of that is for sure true. Now, let's look into this because you've been out by yourself in the woods, and you probably I don't know what areas of Virginia, West Virginia you've been, or Pennsylvania, but when you go there, it's nighttime or daytime. What is the environment like? Meaning, what kind of sounds do you hear? How does the sky look? How's it the temperatures? What do you smell? What do you sense?
That's those are good questions. I mean, every location is different. Even though I know a lot of the areas here in Virginia, I will tell you it's a different feeling, a different atmosphere. I was actually bringing this up to Chad this past weekend. Going up to Pennsylvania. Even though a lot of the woods and the terrain is very similar to what we have in Virginia, it's a different world up there. I mean, maybe it's because I haven't spent enough concentrated time in these certain particular areas, but it will give you that different feeling. Like, yeah, you're not at home no more. You're not in your home zone. You're not in your neck of the woods. It does definitely give you a different feeling. You sense that, okay, you're the outsider. You definitely feel that. You definitely sense that. I know I do, but that's when your senses become more alerted to the surroundings. That's when you get to pay more special attention to what might be around, and that includes your sense of smell. The smell of the areas. They all smell pretty much similar or the same. Sometimes smells change depending on weather, and the temperature. So I can't say I've ever smelt anything out of the ordinary altogether. I never smelt anything that I could say related to death or whatnot. I mean, I smelt dead animals before, but it's basically natural smells of nature. But yeah, being up in a different area, I don't care if it's West Virginia, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, South Carolina, West, whatever. I've been in all these states up, as far as up to Rhode Island, I mean, up and down the East Coast. I've been in all these different places in the woods. I can't say, I mean, well, let me back up. I will say this sometimes in these different locations outside of my comfort zone, because Virginia is my comfort zone. So going outside of my comfort zone, yes, I've had that sense of uneasiness, where there's that slight sense of what's the word I'm looking for? I have felt vulnerable because I've done this by myself so many times, but you're also by yourself, no one else around you. I mean, yes, I've been vulnerable multiple times, and I think for some reason I get a thrill for that at times. I put myself in that predicament. I don't know why, but I do. And that kind of brings me to, I know we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but Bigfoot Explorers, well, that's what usually me and my group. But there's another series I started doing. It's based off of my solo research and my solo adventures. It's also titled Gone Rogue. And I've gone out in the field numerous times over the years by myself. And, I figure, what? I'm out there by myself a lot. If I want to start putting my research out there solo, I'm going to turn this into a film episode. It's a documentary film episode about my adventures and what I do. And, yeah, I've gone rogue so many times, it's not funny. But, again, I've camped by myself. Very few times in my own area have I ever felt really intimidated. There's been a few times, but it's been very little. I mean, the things I've experienced by myself do intimidate me. I mean, I'm talking about hearing large humanoid bipedal steps just feet away from me inside the tree line, walking away. Now, I'm going to tell you, anyone that's ever felt that or experienced that knows exactly what I'm talking about because, You hear these large humanoid heavy steps walking away from you with every step it takes with a crunch and a bump at the same time. Make your heart go from your chest up into your throat. Especially 10 o'clock at night, nobody else is around, and you're by yourself. You know, I've been there before. I've actually experienced that right here in Virginia, in the George Washington National Forest. So, I know what it's like to feel intimidated, and then there's other areas that are close to the West Virginia I've been in by myself that were quite intimidating, So, um, I don't know, but again, I keep putting myself in that position because maybe it's because I am eager to want to experience something far beyond what I want to experience, So it kind of it's exciting and thrilling and maybe stupid at the same time, but I keep doing it. I can't explain it, Diego. I don't know, but that's who I am and what I keep doing because I want answers, I want adventures, and I want to experience. I guess maybe I want a story to tell. Like, I don't make stuff up. If I experience something, it's because it's something that really happened. But I guess that's why I keep putting myself out there. I'm out there for the adventure. I'm out there for the experience. And with all that being said, you learn from all this. So the more I learn, the more I get to share with people, So, that's how I look at it.
In a way, you're testing yourself because you're putting yourself in situations to see how does one react when you hear something, and I'll use the terminology generic, monstrous behind you or making a sound, something walking next to you that damn well you're there by yourself. So in a way, you get yourself accustomed to that environment because, overreacting could be deadly to you, or underreacting could also be deadly because you need to know what to do in these certain situations.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of people I've seen people ask that question publicly. I've been asked that personally. Well, if you do come face to face with one, what are you going to do? You can't really respond because you're not going to really know until that moment happens. You can come up with all these thoughts and ideas, that's all fine and dandy, but it's a different scenario. It's a whole different situation when it does happen. I mean, if you're face to face with something, you're probably going to be froze. In some cases, some people might be pissing and pooping in the pants. I don't know.
But, that would be me. So I'm not gonna lie to you. I'd have to go in the woods like the astronauts go to the moon. I'd have to wear my Depends.
Right. But it's just like I said. I think for every person, I think it's going to be a different situation. It's going to be a different experience for each and every individual. I mean, I'm sure you've heard this. I mean, I've heard people who have experienced up close and personal sightings while they were out hunting or hiking in the woods, and their experience shook them to the core to where they don't want to go back out there no more. And it's funny. Let me say this. I grew up not watching horror movies. I don't watch horror movies, although on occasion I catch myself watching one more, or maybe more of a thriller, because I do like a good thriller, every now and then. But again, I've been out in the woods numerous times where I've been highly intimidated, or I felt intimidated. I felt pretty much scared and on edge, where my heart was beating up my throat. But again, I keep putting myself out there. It's like I don't know if I'm drawn to that thrill. I was like, I don't know. Yeah, do I find it fascinating to find dead bodies? Not dead, let me specify. Dead animal kills. I found a lot of dead kills of animals out there, But I keep in mind, it's like there's a lot of predators out here, I can't contribute to all this, the Bigfoot or whatever else might be out there. I mean, shoot, I found bear remains. I found skulls and partial carcasses to bears out there. But I can tell you where a lot of that comes from. A pack of coyotes will run them down. I found bear scat and coyote scat numerous times. Bear hair and coyote scat numerous times. So, it's just predators will attack other predators. It's like the Lion King movie. It's a circle of life. Everything goes after something. You know, you don't always know what's on top of the food chain. You know, the coyotes. You ever see a purebred coyote? They ain't much bigger than a 40-pound dog. But you know what? When you get a whole pack of them, that's a different story. You know, you're in danger. You know, I have seen what I believe to be wolves out there. But there's a lot of wildlife. You know, we're not supposed to underestimate nature in general. You know, just respect it. Go out there. You know, you don't have to go out there fearing everything that's out there. You know, it's easy for us to fear the unknown or the fear of the unexpected. You know, but that's what keeps us on our toes. That's what keeps us alert. You know, I mean, and the more you deal with that feeling and put yourself out there, you're gonna start learning a lot more than you realize. You know, you're gonna learn how to pay attention, and you're gonna learn what to fear and not to fear. You know, I mean, I've had coyotes and hearing crazy sounds and other vocals real close to me at camp, and I sit there a lot at night, you know, with the fire going outside my tent, hearing all these sounds, and I just can't help but think how awesome that is. It really is. You're in their home. You're experiencing what they do for, you know, how they live, how they, you know, whatever. You know, anything to the smallest mammal to the largest predator out there. I mean, I've heard rabbits being taken by, you know, foxes and owls. I mean, so it's whatever. You know, you hear the sounds of even the prey scream their final breath. You know, I've heard it. I have heard it, you know, and all the years growing up out, you know, spending time out in the woods ever since I was a kid up to present time now. I just turned 46 years old. I know I'm a lot younger compared to a lot of these, you know, so-called experts that are out there that claim this and that. But I'm going to tell you, I know what I've experienced. Me, I study a lot of the wildlife. You know, I know a lot about wildlife because I grew up observing wildlife. I grew up since I was a young kid hunting the wildlife, you know, and you get to hear their vocalizations, you get to see and study their tracks, you know. And when it comes to the unknown, I'm going to tell you, I quote this quite often. It's even quoted in my books. Learn and know what is known before seeking the unknown. And the reason why I practice saying that and I throw it out there is because I've met people that are 50, 60, 70 years old that, you know, they're involved with the whole Bigfoot research and cryptid research. You'd be surprised to some of the stuff you hear that comes out of their mouth. And I'm sad, you know, it's kind of sad to say this, but I'll put it out there. These old men don't know their face from their, you know, whatever. I mean, you think that they would be wiser, but no, they're letting their imagination control their beliefs, you know, instead of facing reality. Yeah, a lot of people play make believe in this world, you know, when Bigfoot and other cryptids are real, but at the same time, they're neglecting what is known, you know, and what they're responsible for and what they're known for, you know. I mean, oh, I heard of Bigfoot last night. You know, how do you know it wasn't some other animal? A good example is that good friend of mine, older gentleman from Pennsylvania in his 70s, he camped with us one time. And he told us the next morning around, you know, sitting around the campfire, oh, I heard a squatch last night. About 2 o'clock in the morning. It was going off and off and off. It's funny. A little bit later that day, we heard that same sound. He said, that's what I heard last night. I said, that's exactly what you heard last night? I said, that's a screech owl. You know, so your people think they hear one thing. It's not what they think it is. You know, there's a lot of wildlife out there that people are neglecting and forgetting. They have no clue what these animals sound like because they live in La La Land, you know. So, you know, I'm not trying to put anybody down, but that's the truth behind how a lot of people are in nature. They go out there with one mindset, forgetting what else is actually living there. You know, there's the wildlife. If you have Bigfoot compared to all these other population of wildlife, there's more wildlife than there is a Bigfoot. I will tell you that much for a fact. You know, but you know, again, people want to give Bigfoot credit for every little thing they hear or every broken tree limb that's out there. When you got weather and bears and so much more. I mean, I like looking at Bigfoot structures. I find a lot of these tree structures and formations very fascinating Because some of them, I do question some of them, but there's a lot of other possibilities you got to consider before giving Bigfoot that consideration. Bigfoot or cryptids should be our last consideration, you know. But I mean, nature and weather play a big key role in a lot of what we find, you know. And I will tell you, bears are very destructive. They will uproot a tree, they will down a tree, stretch a tree, rip a tree down. I mean, whatever. I've seen it all. But you know, it is what it is, you know. But you know, again, people ignore that, you know, or forget that Bigfoot, you know, that bears exist, and you know, and all these other animals that are known for standing on their hind legs and pulling down tree limbs. Deer do that all the time too, by the way. So, well, it's crazy, yeah, how the world that's evolved with what we do here want to give Bigfoot credit for everything, but you know, they're only deceiving themselves in the way they think. You know, I personally find it more fascinating and more exciting to, hey, let's rule all this out. You know, it's a process of elimination. You know, I'm not the forensic, you know, artist. I'm not the forensic, what do you call it, agent. But the way the FBI, when they investigate a scene, a crime scene, it's all ruling out all the possibilities. It's the same thing in research. You know, when you come to something, you want to figure out what it is. Yeah, some things are easier said than done. You know, you always want to try out to rule out and look at all scenarios and all different angles of what you're looking at. You know, hey, wait a minute. Okay, well, this is bent and stretching to this position. Okay, well, maybe weather blew it down that way, and ice and snow bent it that way. Or maybe an animal climbed up here, like a bear, and pulled it down and it stretched that way, and the fiber stuck that way. You know, there's all kinds of little things we could look at. But again, people forget about what we have living among us. You know, again, why's everything got to be Bigfoot? You know, that's my question. Why is everything got to be Bigfoot? You know, I deal with this almost on a daily basis. You know, and I get people sending me pictures of this and that. I don't even know how to respond to them anymore. It's getting to the point where, like, come on, man. You know, it's like it gets old after a while. It really does.
Well, here's the other side of that. When you come face to face or close to a real deal Bigfoot, somebody would say there later, "Are you sure it wasn't a bear?" Because it's always a bear, even though it's a Bigfoot. I don't know. There's always that side of the coin too.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna say there's misidentifications all the time. I don't doubt that one bit. Now it's funny that you bring that up because the same individual that I am talking about that claimed he heard a Bigfoot, it turned out to be a screech owl. Well, one camp out before that, his wife joined him. His wife was down there. Now he admits that she was more of a city girl. She's never been around out in the outdoors to experience wildlife. Well, the one time they camped with us, well, they drove their truck up to the gate where you have to park at the gate and then you got to hike up to get to the lake from there. Well, long story short, where they were pulling in and turning in the park, she was on the passenger seat looking over her shoulder out the back window and sees this humanoid figure. Well, I mind you, she's telling her husband, hey, there's a bear over there. Now, mind you, it's on 2 feet. Okay. She's getting a good observation of it while he's still parking. Then all of a sudden, she sees it run across the road on 2 feet really fast. Now, some of the details, she didn't mention a lot of the details till they got back to the campsite. After she talked about this, she kept calling it a bear. Because her husband's like, don't worry, I got my sidearm with me. Where, you know, you have nothing to worry about. There's nothing out here that's going to bother us, blah, blah, blah. But she started telling the story and the details that, you know, followed when they got back to camp. You know, she said it was standing up around probably maybe approximately 6 feet tall. It stood there, you know, and she even saw that with a tree, there was a small tree that was overhanging. So, yeah, they did a height comparison. It was just above I think it was right about where the tree limb was hanging. So it was around 6 feet tall. But she said this thing ran off on 2 feet real fast across through the woods, you know. And when she was telling everybody that, it's like, wait a minute, you said it was a bear. Bears might stand on 2 feet for a short time and only walk a short distance. Bears will not run on two legs. Not as fast as she was claiming. And she had no idea. Again, she was saying it was a bear. But in all honesty, we believe she actually saw a real squatch. Probably a young one. But this particular area, there's been other sightings here. And, we've heard that, according to history and record, the sheep squatch is this. I don't know much about the sheep squatch, even though it's more of a West Virginia thing. According to local legend, according to local folklore, it's been cited. Supposedly, the sheep squatch has been sighting in this area too. I keep in mind, mind you, we're only a few miles from West Virginia in this particular site. So, I have seen trackways in the snow from bear hunters who showed me their pictures. I know there's squatches, just big squatches. Based off the size of the tracks I've seen from others that shared their pictures, I was like, that ain't a little guy. I don't know how to estimate the size of an 18-inch track in the snow. That's only a couple of inches deep. I can recall, seeing these pictures of these tracks. I was in my main research area, far from this location, and at the time, these young guys in a small silver gray pickup truck, they saw my Bigfoot decals on my vehicle, and I guess they felt like they had to stop and talk to me about something. And they pull up their phone. Now, mind you, there's no phone service, but they have this picture saved on their phone. And they're showing me this picture, and I'm seeing this trackway in the snow on the side of some road. Now, keep in mind, the snow was only a couple inches deep, but the track impressions were as deep as the snow. And you could clearly see the shape and everything. I mean, they said they were around 18 inches. And you could see on the side of the road, there was a long stretch of trackway. This wasn't just a single track, or this was a whole complete trackway on the side of some back road. And when they told me the location, now this is before I really got to spend some time out there, before I really got to know the area. I mean, I've heard stuff about this area way back when, but this was the first time I've ever seen any evidence of what was around that area. And I was blown away. First, I thought they were showing me because, hey, I was like, I mean, they're in my area. I said, where was this at? I'm thinking it was somewhere nearby, even though there's been sightings in my area from others too. But when they mentioned the name of the area, I was like, my jaw about dropped. What? So, that was impressive. I mean, I gave them a card. I wanted them. I never got those pictures. I really wanted a copy of those pictures. It's whatever. That was years ago. But this area that we're focusing in, I know there's something out there. I personally have not seen nothing in this area except for hearing a few strange vocalizations, camping by myself, seeing a strange round ball of light, then just hearing stories from other eyewitnesses that have had sightings out there. And not to mention the online history and the folklore I've learned of this area. It's been fascinating. I mean, I've experienced more of the paranormal side of things versus the physical side of things, so either way, I mean, I'm experiencing something out there and it's exciting. I mean, I'm loving it, I mean, I don't know if you're a camper, but man, I would invite you to come out and join us in May.
So we'll talk about that because I fall under the more of a glamper, which is you put me in a cabin. Some no, but I appreciate the invite. I am due. I haven't been in the cabin in so long, but the reason I asked earlier when you talking about you being out there in the woods by yourself, what you've heard, what you experienced, what you've seen, what you smelled. Mm-hmm. And you talked about how detectives go to a crime scene and try to deduct things, right? What is not, and then they do they do their investigations, similar with what you're doing. And let me explain, because you talked about the person that for definitely thought they heard that's a Bigfoot. Naturally, once you heard that sound, you were able to go back in your and said, no, that's the sound of a certain type of owl. So it's not a Bigfoot. So that's the advantage that you have versus some of those who perhaps just watch the shows or read the books or get information from other people, because you're doing the real deal work. You're going out there, you're investigating, you're doing the research. Which brings me to this question, because you've dedicated a lot of years of your life investigating and researching Bigfoot. With so many things out there, my friend, that have happened. Now, when it comes, there's supernatural, we got UFOs, we have other cryptids.
Mm-hmm.
But the big question here is this: why Bigfoot?
That's a good question. And I will tell you, now, I'm going to be careful how I bring this up, because even though, let me back up. A big part of what got me involved was seeing the 1967 Roger Patterson Bob Gimlin footage. And I know, I'll speak about this for a little bit here, considering what's going on with this footage right now.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big part of what got me involved. That caught my attention. I was actually fascinated by that footage. I was one of the ones that ended up believing in that footage. Now, regardless of where that ends up coming to be, because I will say a lot of people are misunderstanding what's coming about. If that footage was to be proven a hoax by whatever means, okay, so be it. But a lot of people are acting like, okay, if that's proven to be a hoax, that's trying to dismiss the history of Bigfoot's existence altogether. That's wrong. That ain't what it's after. They're not after the existence of Bigfoot. Bigfoot exists. I promise you that. There's a long history dating hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, long before Patty came out. I mean, even though that footage was a big part of why I got involved, I mean, I saw the red flags in that anyway. There's things that stood out to me like, that don't make sense. I don't care if that's a made-up costume by someone personally, or, I mean, Hollywood said they didn't have nothing like that. I mean, there's a lot of things that said, that pointed towards there's no way that could have been made by this person or that person or this agency or whatever. But, these guys were going out there to make a Bigfoot film and to look for a Bigfoot, and by coincidence, they found a Bigfoot to film. A year before that, Roger Patterson put out a book that had a sketch in it from his own personal hand that sketched a female Bigfoot. A year later, they filmed a female Bigfoot. Coincidence or not? Those are red flags to me. But I kind of ignored some of that. So regardless, I'm not trying to put the footage down, but those are the things that stood out to me as a negative thing. So, I mean, it's whatever. I mean, right now, that's a big talk of the community right now. But I decided to leave it alone. I was like, I'm not going to have no say-so in it, because, I see anyone who does talk about it, they're getting shut down or they're being looked at in a negative point of view, because people don't want to hear it. They don't want to believe it. If it is fake, I mean, supposedly this new documentary that's going to be coming out has footage from way back when revealing so-and-so that was involved and kept the story all these years. Well, the video footage supposedly claims him in it, making jokes and running around with a costume, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. None of us have seen that footage yet. So we're making all this speculation, and we're getting huffy and puffy over it when we should just whatever, let it be. When it comes out, regardless of what's said. Because supposedly this individual has signed an NDA where he can't speak about it until after it's released. And supposedly he's going to give a release. I was told by a good friend of mine, reliable source, that he will give a statement confessing to the whole thing. I don't know. I'm only going by what I'm told by a source that I trust, that's always revealed the truth about something. She's good at what she does. But again, that was a big part of what got me involved. That had me going out in the woods. I mean, I was actually looking at things I never looked at before. I was paying attention to things I never paid attention to before. I mean, I grew up in the woods. I was familiar with all the wildlife, since I was a young kid. But the more I got involved and started in my field research, I started finding things out there that made me believe strongly, which made me a knower before I ever had any kind of experience. I've seen the tracks for myself, you know? So before having experience, I became a knower. I know Bigfoot exists, you know? So yeah, Bigfoot became a part of my world. There was a curiosity that grew into a passion. That passion really sparked and blew up. And here I am now, you know? I take the subject of Bigfoot as a learning tool to educate people and spread awareness of my research. But on top of that, to point things out to get them to look at things more in an objective approach. In other words, don't accept everything as Bigfoot because there's a lot more out there that we neglect. That again, that's where it comes down to my saying: learn and know what is known before seeking the unknown. So yeah. Again, regardless of Patty, if she's real or fake, that's opened the eyes. That's opened me up to a new world. And that's not going to stop me from researching because, again, I know Bigfoot exists. I know Bigfoot is real, regardless of how you view the footage of Patty. But, you can look, a lot of people ignore the red flags, because, I never met Bob. I never met Bob Dimley. I've seen him in a lot of documentaries, a lot of interviews. He seems like a pretty kind, straightforward kind of guy, down to earth, whatever. But, some people say, he's such a kind, sweethearted guy. How could he ever tell a lie? Jeffrey Dahmer was a sweet kind of guy, too, I don't know why I'm comparing him. But
he was such a nice boy. Such
I
a
know.
sweet boy, quiet boy growing up.
Exactly.
No, but, interesting because during one of your events, and there was a gentleman there. I've had him on the prior show before it became Let's Find Out. And he's going to kill me because I forgot his last name. His first name is Kurt. And he had a presentation in one of your events using the
Kurt
Patty
Radford,
film, right?
Yeah,
Kurt
he lives
Radford.
here in Virginia. Yep.
Great guy, nice guy. And he broke it down. He gave his version what he thought it was. And I was never really into that footage, but he really got me into it and thinking a little bit more. And I think that's the goal of some of these presenters, to get you to think differently or think more, looking deeper into things. But in my mind, I'm thinking, if this thing is a hoax, it could be. I don't know. I'm not the expert.
Right.
But then I've seen modern day hoaxes where people are using CGI, and I would say better costumes, and they look fake as shit.
Yep.
The Patty film looks a little. I think it looks real compared to modern day hoaxes. That one, for the time, it took the cake, brother, because they did a great job. If it is a hoax,
Right.
That is.
Yeah, because there's no costumes built even today, even in Hollywood costumes that you could still. There's a lot of Hollywood built costumes you could pay $1,000 for. Anybody can get their hands on if you have the money to spend on it. But not one of them compares that looks like a Patty footage. Now if that was a one of a kind costume that was built by whatever, handmade or whatever, and again, like you said, if it turns out to be a hoax, it's going to be one of the greatest hoaxes of all time. Here we are over 60-something years later, or whatever the year was, 60 years or whatever. It's got a lot of us fooled if it is a hoax. But a lot of people, regardless if the evidence is presented out there, and even if so-and-so confesses to it being a hoax, people are still not going to believe it's a hoax. So it's going to be a win and lose conversation, a win and lose, scenario. But I will say this for anybody that believes, or regardless if it comes out to be a hoax, don't look at the Patterson footage as the existence of Bigfoot. Bigfoot's existence came about long before Patty. So regardless if Patty's real or not, that's how a lot of people are approaching this. Like, oh, Bigfoot's real. By saying Patty's fake, they're trying to say all Bigfoot's fake. No, it's not what's being said here. But people are taking and having this major misconception of the whole ordeal. Everybody relax, take a deep breath. It's not what you think it is, But don't let it stop your research. Yeah. Don't let it stop your belief, because Bigfoot is real. I promise you, they are real. Yeah.
In a way, it's definitely true what you're saying, because you can take anything. You can pick a subject, if it's UFOs, Bigfoot, paranormal, even certain religious things. I grew up in the times where people used to fake miracles, fake healings, or XYZ. Doesn't mean that these things don't happen. It just means you have people out there that have nefarious reasons, either for fame, for money, or for now, modern day, for clicks
Right.
on the internet or YouTube or the X or TikTok, which I don't get on TikTok anyway. But don't let that discourage you from doing your own research and going out in the field. And then now, well, let's move forward now, because we're talking about your life's work, and then you have a film series coming out called Bigfoot Explorers.
Yeah.
Let's get into that. And how did you get into that? Because I'm thinking you have 2 books, probably. Actually, we talked earlier, I think 3 or 4, but collectively then you condense into another book. You have the films, you have the podcast. I don't know how you find the time, but let's talk about Bigfoot Explorers.
Well, I tell you, Bigfoot Explorers. Now, I have on my YouTube channel, I have so many different field videos. Me personally, one thing I present through a presentation or on social media, I believe in spreading awareness. And by that being said, I want people to see my research. I want people to know what I do, why I do, and how I do. Uh, Now, I started filming my group campouts, where me and my group goes out, we explore. We're laid back. We don't have a film crew out there. We're boots on the ground. Our film series is not scripted, so we're not here for your entertainment. I mean, regardless, some people might view it as a form of entertainment, which is fine, but it's not. We're not finding Bigfoot. We're not expedition Bigfoot. We're not trying to compare ourselves to neither one of those. We are a group of people going out there, exploring nature as what it's really all about. We have gizmos and gadgets. We have some technology that we personally bought out of our own funding. We don't have a network supporting us or funding us. Um, you know, so but we go out there. I want people to see nature. I want people to see what it's like to go out there as we explore through the wildlife, and through the nature. And that's what it's mainly all about. Now, if we do capture something and experience something, great. We want people to see it. Although we've had some experiences out there, we weren't filming and we weren't prepared for it. So I mean that's the way it goes. I mean, you want to keep the camera rolling nonstop as much as possible when we're out there, but it is what it is. So Bigfoot Explorers is something that I started where I wanted to find a way to put the word out there and to show people more of my field videos. YouTube, I could direct people to my YouTube videos and subscribe. I don't have many subscribers. I have a little over 4,000 subscribers. But where some of my videos, I've had more views on some of my videos than I do subscribers, which is great. I mean, I feel like some of my work is being put out there and it's slowly being spread and observed and viewed. But I will tell anybody who is watching and that does subscribe, we're not going to pretend to put a Bigfoot in there. We're not going to put fake thermal images out there to keep your attention there. Expedition Bigfoot, finding Bigfoot, yes, that's what they do because they're controlled by a network. They're controlled by a network that needs to keep the attention of the viewers. The more views they have, the more money they make. That's the way it goes. We're not out there. I'm working with independent film distribution guy, Shane Michaels, who is the owner of Blood Pack Films. Most of their films are horror films, fictional horror films. But he agreed to pick me up for film distribution. So we're Bigfoot Explorers. We're supposed to be on Fawson TV, the Fawson TV network. They have one episode on up there, but when you go to their actual site and to look us up, you can't find us. There's something wrong with the network, or they didn't put it in correctly under their library. I don't know how that works. However, I just recently got picked up by another network. It's a small town network. Headline Outdoors, and I'm very thankful to them because they're gonna start airing all our first season on their network, which if you have a Roku TV or if you got a Amazon Fire Stick, April 1st you'll be able to see our footage on Amazon and Roku. So, and right now I just started filming for season 2, the first episode. I got some editing to do with that one. That'll be out very soon. So yeah, I mean that's a big part of what we're doing. Bigfoot Explorers. If you want to watch the first season, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Bigfoot Zone, ECBRO. I have it say instead of searching for it under the field videos, just go to the playlist, Bigfoot Explorers Season 1, and be on the lookout for Season 2 very soon for the first episode. Also, Gone Rogue. Gone Rogue is supposed to be coming out on Fawson too, but again, the Fawson TV network is really behind. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, now the books I've got out there, Trail of the Unknown, a lot of it's based off of the research and the experiences I myself, along with others, that are mentioned in it. Now, the other book, The Bigfoot Zone, it's a comprehension doctrine, research doctrine of Bigfoot investigations. That there does reference Trail of the Unknown here and there. That there is a detailed breakdown field guide on how we should look at the world very objectively. Even though it doesn't deny the existence, but it is a very objective book with the details given, and how we should present the way we view things, versus how many others view things, So it's something to really pay attention to. And I encourage everybody to buy both books because, again, Trail of the Unknown and The Bigfoot Zone, they go hand in hand. They really do. They're only 100-page books. They got chapters, and there's a book breakdown glossary in the back of them. And I encourage everybody. They are still pending global distribution. However, they can be purchased through lulu.com. Lulu, LULU.com. Go to that site. Go to the bookstore. You can find these books. I highly encourage you to do so. I plan on having some copies. The only event I will be speaking at this year, because I kind of backed off of a lot of events, besides a few library lectures I might be doing. Come October, I'll be in the West Virginia Bigfoot Festival. I've spoken there about 4 times before, and I didn't realize this, but I saw that they put me on the list for this year. I didn't really discuss it with them. I was like, oh, okay, cool, I'll do it. So I plan on having some copies of my books at the West Virginia Bigfoot Festival in October. Yes, they are doing their event in October this year, which is going to be great. It won't be so hot and humid, and people won't get so, they've had people sick and, pass out from the heat from their past events. So they're finally moving it. One, they moved it to a different location, and they're later in the time of year where it'll be a much cooler, comfortable weather, which will be awesome. So, yeah, I'll be there speaking this year on Friday, October 9th. So, yeah, come say hi. So, yeah, that's pretty much what's going on right now. But yeah, I encourage you guys to watch Bigfoot Explorers, get a feel of what we do. We're not, again, I'll repeat, we are not scripted, and we don't put content in there for your entertainment. We cut up, we joke, we have a good time, and you'll see us lounging around the camp. You'll see us hiking and exploring. And if we find something, yeah, we do try to share it to the best of our ability. So, yep, that's what we got going on so far.
Oh, just a few things, man. You're doing awesome things out there. And I know that we only just scratched the surface, not only on your research and experiences, but with the projects that you have going on. And if you don't mind, I'd love to bring you back later this year because we're going to expand and get deeper into not only your work and experiences, but also some of the stories that you've heard from other people during your camping trips and also when they approach you at these events. Because as we talked about earlier, sometimes you learn more for the people you meet than the stuff that you already know.
Oh, yeah.
So if you don't mind, let's bring you back later this year and get you back on.
Yeah, let's do it. Absolutely. Maybe sometime after May, because my group camp out coming up. I do believe we'll have the most people attending the group camp out. We got the Vogel brothers coming down from Massachusetts. We got one guy coming all the way up from Florida to join us. So I'm not sure who that individual is. He associates. He's camped out and gone on expeditions with a couple of local Florida Bigfoot research groups, and Skunk Ape Project people, and so he'll be joining us. And I've never met him before, so he'll be new to us. And of course, my local group that joins me every year, every group camp out. So I'm very curious to learn from them what they might know. I mean, I've had one of the Vogel brothers on my podcast where I've interviewed. They've had some stories. They definitely got some stories to tell. And I've got a lot of research. They cover a lot of research, not just Bigfoot and cryptids, but the mountain lions as well. That, again, a lot of your authorities say they don't exist here, but they're here. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to them.
We have a friend in common that does a lot of research, and she does a great job. And I think you and her have a lot of comments when it comes to the topic of mountain lions. But we'll also cover that when we get you back on later this year, my friend. Thank you so much for being on Let's Find Out, and I'll see you down the road.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, man. This has been great.
Thank you, my friend.
Copyright Diego the Podcaster. All content for Let's Find Out is the property of Diego the Podcaster and is served directly from our servers with no modification, redirects, or rehosting. All celebrity impersonators are paid performers. The impersonated celebrities do not endorse or promote any views or opinions expressed by our guests, Diego the Podcaster, or Let's Find Out. The information shared on Let's Find Out with Diego is provided on an as-is basis, with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.